You're listening to Creativity Unconfined. Stay tuned to learn about how the arts unlock the doors for those who are imprisoned.
Greetings. I remain, as ever, Dave Gussack, the director for the Florida State University Institute for the Arts and Art Therapy with the Imprisoned, and I'm so excited to introduce all of you today to just an amazing person, a person who I like to call now friend, for today's episode of Creativity Unconfined. So welcome, and let's sit back and enjoy what I hope to be is going to be an incredible discussion. The person sitting here to my right is Eddie Fordham. Now, Eddie is a public policy student and researcher here at Florida State University, working to expand fair opportunities in workforce development, housing, and higher education for justice impacted individuals. Why? Because Eddie himself was justice impacted after spending 30 years inside for a crime he likes to say he stupidly committed as an adolescent. Right now, however, flash forward 30 some odd years, he is now a Jack Kent Cook Scholar and member of Phi Kappa Phi and Omicron Delta Kappa Honor Societies. He draws on both lived experience and academic training to drive interdisciplinary policy and change. After graduating with his bachelor's just a couple of weeks ago, congratulations, Eddie is currently pursuing his master's degree in public administration right here at Florida State University.
Go Knowles.
Go Knowles. He continues to present at the legislative level focused on educational residency access for incarcerated students. He's also a co-founder of FSU's Justice Impacted Student Organization, creating a pathway to educational attainment without barriers. He passionately champions expanding educational access for such individuals. The Eddie Fordham Act, and yes, indeed, it is called that, passed by the 77th Student Senate at Florida State University, removed the felony conviction barrier and create an equitable pathway for justice impacted students to serve in student government and to make meaningful contributions to their community. He currently serves as a senator in the student government. His motto remains justice impacted, not justice defeated. I will say that there was so much more I could talk about here in his bio, but by the time I finished that, we'd already have used up all of our time. So I wish to now go ahead and just introduce Mr. Fordham. It's a pleasure to see you.
Thank you for having me today, Dave. I noticed in your introduction that you said you were going to call me friend today, but just
No, I'm just going to call him a
not
friend
just for
today. Just today. No, I would like to say that you just showed up to my office, 2.5 years ago, just kind of showed up and said, hey, I've been reading about your stuff. I want to introduce myself. My name is Eddie Fordham. And from there, it took off.
Yeah, I had read a little bit about your research and heard about the arts programs being done across the nation, and a lot of it about therapy. And I knew that I had participated in some of the arts, just individually, knowing how much it had helped me deal with what I was going through as a teenager in prison and being separated from my loved ones, knowing that I had a life sentence. And I ended up here at FSU, and I was like, wait a minute, Dave Gussack is here at FSU, and I was I got to go meet this guy. So I literally just walked up here and knocked on your door unannounced,
Oh my
and
God.
I think you were in here eating a ramen noodle soup.
Hey, it was good. Don't diss the ramen noodle soup, man. It was good.
I have not had a ramen noodle soup since I got out of prison. I have sworn myself off of ramen noodles.
I understand. I fully understand. There's quite a long journey here. Tell us if I may, tell us about that stupid act,
Mhm.
what that time was like inside, and how that got you to where you are now. Because I want to stress that I've known people who, when they leave, they turn their back to all of that. They turn away from it all. You've faced forward. You've looked at this and said, there are changes that need to be made. So tell me about that journey and tell us how you got here.
Yeah, so a very good friend of mine, Dr. Stanley Andrisi, is an endocrinologist. He was incarcerated during his teen years. He was involved in gangs, and he turned a corner in his life. He went to college, got his degrees, and now he's a professor. And he likes to say that we can use our past as a credential instead of a liability. And I've really embraced that mindset because I cannot run from my past anymore, but I can run into my future, and I have the choice to decide where I want that journey to go. And I've chosen to let education become that transformative power in my life. Education has always been a part of my life
Yeah.
because of my parents, the way that they raised me. Unfortunately, I was a knucklehead. I didn't take those things seriously.
Mm.
They were blessings in my life. I was just really just too young and too caught up in myself to really see that. And so at the age of probably around the age of 15, I started making very poor decisions and who my friends were.
Mm.
My parents tried to, warn me, choose your friends wisely, but it went in one ear and out the other. And then one night, I had just turned 18 by 1 month, which in the eyes of the law made me an adult,
Right.
even though I was still in high school. And I drove one of my juvenile friends to go do a drug deal, and things went bad, really south.
Hmm.
He had a gun on him. I stayed in the car while him and another juvenile went inside the store, and somebody ended up getting killed by my juvenile co-defendant.
Mm.
And in Florida, a lot of people don't know this. There are two types of first degree murder in Florida. One is the premeditated kind, like you see in the movies. You plan it, you intend it, you carry it out.
Mm-hmm.
The other type is called felony murder, where if you're just with someone during the commission of an underlying felony, you get the same time as the person who actually pulled the trigger.
Wow.
And in this case, I never left the car. I stayed outside the whole entire time. My jury found me not guilty of premeditated murder, but because of the felony murder law in Florida, the judge had no choice
Okay.
but to sentence me to life in prison as a teenager.
Wow. Oof. And you're sentenced to life. Instead, you spend 30 years inside.
31 years, 2 months, and 8 days.
Wow. My goodness. And during that time, though, some people may go in and, how do I say this, use the time poorly.
Mm,
You used it. You used it well, if I may,
mm.
as well as you can use that type of time. Can you give us a little kind of synopsis of some of the things that you did and some of the, dare I say, changes that you made while you were inside?
Yeah, so I remember when I was sitting in the county jail, people were telling me, hey, they called me a jitterbug, for being young, I guess, right? Then as I got older in prison, they started calling me Pop. So
Really?
I went from jitterbug to Pop and
What
all
was it?
sort of
Was
kind of
there a
stuff.
transitional name in there just to immediately jitterbug to
No,
pops?
just I don't
Oof.
know, somewhere along the way, I was never called Jit anymore, and people started leaving me alone a little bit as I got older. But
Okay.
young people in prison, they get tested,
Yeah.
and so I was being told, listen, when you get to prison, you're young, you're white, you're good looking by convict standard, pretty by convict standards, you're gonna have a hard road, right? And people were telling me, like, when you get there, you need to grab a pipe or a brick or something and find the biggest person on the compound and hit them upside the head, and then you'll get all the respect and everybody will leave you alone after that. And that scared me to death because, I mean, here I was going to trial, right? Charged with murder and armed robbery, right? And like going to trial for that, and then got people telling me for murder I didn't commit, telling me that when you do get to prison, you're probably going to have to kill someone just to be able to survive in there.
Oof.
And so that was really, really scary. When I did finally get to prison, it wasn't easy. The transition was hard. Um, but the first institution that I got to, Appalachia Correctional Institution,
Yeah.
it had an arts program.
Yes, it did.
And
I'm proud to say we were a part of that.
there was a Native American man there. We'll just call him John.
Okay.
And John was the instructor to teach people how to do oil paintings,
Mm-hmm.
and they were beautiful. But I couldn't get into the program because I had too much time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they said that because I had a life sentence, I wasn't eligible for any of the self-betterment programs that they had I wasn't eligible for education. I wasn't eligible for vocation. The
Really?
only thing I was eligible for was to work on inside grounds and push a lawnmower. That's what
Oh,
they
my
told me when I
goodness.
first got there. Yeah. But anyway, one of the things that did bring me joy was that I did go to John and told him that my mom and dad had an anniversary coming up, and could he do a picture for my mom and dad? And he did a bald eagle.
Oh.
And I had a quote. It said that I just don't want to ride the wind with the eagles. I want to soar above them, you
Okay.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that picture was like my first kind of like introduction to the arts in prison. And even though I didn't paint that picture myself, it allowed me to send something home
Mm-hmm.
to my mom and dad, you know.
Wow.
And but anyway, I kind of did find my way through survival, and that actually came through education and vocation.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to enroll in education, I remember my classification officer at the time, Mr. Maybarty, he had told me, he said, well, I'm going to sign you to Insight Grounds. And I said, sir, I said, with all due respect, you know, the judge sent me here. I want to improve my life while I'm here, you know. And he's like, are you refusing to work for them? And I'm like, no, sir, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not refusing to work. It's just if there's a possibility that I could get into education, that would be, you know, great. And so he just kind of sat and he looked up and down me and he said, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you in what's called the 150-hour basic literacy program.
Okay.
And he said, you do the 150 hours and we'll go from there. I said, okay. He goes, but I'm going to tell you something, Fordham. If I walk by there and I stick my head in that door and you're sitting in the back of the class, nodding out, shooting spitballs, not doing your homework, I'm going to lock your butt up, put you in confinement, and then when you get out of confinement, I'm going to put you on one of them Flintstones, right? Which is
Oof.
the
Yeah.
push lawnmower.
Oh my
And
God.
I said, yes, sir, I appreciate that. So I had a chance,
No spitballs.
no
Okay.
spitballs. And I
All right.
sat in the front of the class, like,
Okay.
right. I was there 5 minutes early and I had all my homework done and it worked
Okay.
out really, really good. But when I was getting some of those grades back, they were like A's. And I didn't do A's in high school. You know, I was too busy, you know,
Yeah.
chasing girls and getting in trouble and shooting spitballs
Shooting
in class.
spitballs.
Right. But I did really good, and it kind of showed me that it's possible
Yeah.
that I could do good with this. And so then the next opportunity was to go into a vocational class where I wanted to do welding. And again, I met up against that barrier about having a life sentence and not being allowed to get into these programs.
Yeah.
So each time I wanted to get into a program, it was not automatic for me. I had to go and advocate for myself, right?
Right.
And I'm glad that there were employees that were understanding enough to kind of like, I don't know, bend the rule a little bit, or if they had leeway, they could let me have that opportunity. And that next opportunity was in that welding class. And we actually did art in the welding class.
Really?
Yeah, we did some pretty cool stuff down there, you know. Um, but to get into it, they told me that it was in the law book. They said anyone with, you know, with a life sentence is not allowed to get into the class. So I went and I sat down with the educational director there, Dr. Ramos,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Ramos said, here, I'll show you in the book. And he pulls the book down and he opened it up. And I read it and I was like, Dr. Ramos, that's not what it says. It says anyone with 5 years or less shall have priority.
Oh,
Yeah, it's totally
okay.
different,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But everybody on the compound, even the employees, had all thought, oh, if you're a long timer, you can't get in, and it had just become that norm. No one had
Yeah.
actually just said, wait a minute, that's not what it says. So Dr. Ramos, he was cool about it. He was like, I understand what you're saying, Fordham,
Okay.
but that's above my pay grade. He said, if you want, you can write to Dr. Merrill Jones over at River Junction, who was
Who's the
the
regional?
head regional education
Okay.
director.
Yeah.
And back then, you know, there was no such thing as email, so I actually sat down, wrote a letter,
Right.
put a stamp on it, licked the envelope, sealed it up, you know, sent it off. And about a week and a half later, the letter came back to Dr. Ramos, and Dr. Jones had said, if there is a slot available in that welding
Okay.
class, let Fordham in. But he needs to understand that if somebody comes along and needs that slot who's under 5 years, Fordham has to take a step back to allow that person in.
Okay.
And so I was able to get in, and not only did I get in, but I excelled in the welding program. I got my ARC, MIG, and TIG certificates, and then I didn't just leave. I was invited to become an instructor, a peer instructor.
Really?
Yeah,
In welding.
in the welding class. And some of the stuff that those guys would, because you had like the book work, you know, you had to do the pipe test and the
Sure.
bend test or the pressure test and all that kind of stuff. But after that, people started building things like barbecue grills with intricate what is it called? The Fleur de Lis
Oh yeah,
pattern.
Fleur de Lis.
Right,
Yeah,
they would build these things and
really.
patterns around inside of
Send them
barbecue
over to New
grills.
Orleans, right?
Yeah, you grill your hamburger, you get a nice little Fleur de Lis print.
That's what I'm looking for.
It was art. It was art, you know. And so I did that for about a year or so, and then I saw an article or something on the news about this kid who had a high school kid
Hmm.
who had leukemia and had been in a hospital forever, and was able to get their high school diploma through the mail. And
Right,
so I just, in context, I framed it like, okay, I'm not in a hospital, but I'm in an institution.
right.
I don't have my high school diploma. I was only one class away from getting my high school diploma when I
Before
got
you went
arrested.
inside, wow.
My English
Okay.
4 is all I needed. Right. And so I thought, well, maybe the same way they deliver education to that patient in the hospital, they could deliver it to me in a prison. And so I wrote letters to the superintendent of schools of Escambia County, to my former principal and assistant principals, and they all got together and they said, okay, if you take a distance education class, right?
Yeah.
It was actually done through the University of Florida's distance education
Okay.
program.
Wow.
So I was accepted into that program and I passed, and I was able to get my, I think I was probably the first person in the
Right.
history of the Florida Department of Corrections to get their regular high school diploma. It said Escambia
Wow.
High School on it. And man, that really just set me on fire because I really wanted to like just keep going, right? This was the one thing that I felt like I could do while incarcerated,
Right.
was pursue my education and give it my all. And then the craziest thing in the world happened right after I got that high school diploma. I think it was like in '93.
Hmm.
Congress, in its infinite wisdom, decided to do away with Pell Grant funding for incarcerated students. It was
Oh, I
part,
think I remember that. I was
yeah,
working
it
in the
was part of the
prisons
big
then.
Crime Bill Act in
Right.
'94.
They were
And
really
thank you,
trying to be.
Senator Jesse Helms of North Carolina, for that snowball
I
effect.
was in California at the time, and I remember hearing that and responding to it, thinking that all of the programming that was out there to help people get out,
Hmm.
once again, tough on crime was how are we going to keep them in the system?
Yeah, and what had happened during that era was that politicians at that time was like, well, if we're tough on crime, we'll get elected,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there were things like, take away the Pell Grants. We don't want to be seen soft on crime, but less than half of 1% of all Pell Grant
Of
funding
course.
was helping people that were incarcerated. But yet, if you continue to educate those that are incarcerated, for every $1 we spend on education, that's returned to society
Right.
5 times over. But these are things that we would learn later in the decades, because finally, in around 2018-ish,
Good.
Congress reversed itself and saw the evidence and said, yes, education reduces recidivism. Education's good for public
Right.
safety.
Right.
I think there was a RAND study.
That was around the same time that we were
Yeah,
approached to bring the arts inside to help mitigate the obstacles to education. Was right
yeah.
around
Yeah,
2018.
so arts and academia started to form partnerships with each other. And if places were not able to bring academic classes in, there was the arts. I would often see the arts where I didn't see academic education.
Tell me about that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of times it was just volunteers that would come in. Sometimes they weren't as structured programs as we
They're
have here at
artists,
Florida
man.
State.
They're not structured.
Right. And they
Sorry,
would
I apologize to all the artists out there, but come on, you know what I'm saying. Go on.
So they would come in and donate. And a lot of times the volunteers would pay for it out of their own pockets. They didn't have grants or anything like that. They weren't backed by any institutions.
Hmm.
But maybe their church would get some things and they would bring the artwork in. But here's what's unique about it. As good as that program was, right?
Hmm.
And the waiting lists were a mile long for these things, right?
Hmm.
The art materials themselves could only be used in designated areas
Right.
of the prison. And if you got caught,
It was contraband.
it was
Yeah.
contraband. And as I look around your office, right, this is like a contraband haven
Oh yeah,
you've
yeah,
created here.
yeah. I have to say this has become a little contraband museum. the pieces that have been smuggled out of the prisons by people, officers who recognize their value, and rather than destroy them like they're supposed to, quote
Hmm.
unquote, they say, you know what, we're going to protect them. Let's send them to Gussack because he's willing to house all of these pieces and eventually force himself out of his own office.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look around, I mean, like this stuff may have been considered contraband, but someone like
Mm-hmm.
who could have been a big time troublemaker or something like that found something that they could center on and focus on. And you've got that log cabin made out of rocks. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been on those wreck yards where those rocks are not that as easy as you think they are to find
No.
because the inside ground crews are actually supposed to pick up the rocks and get them off the compound
Right.
because 5 or 6 rocks in a sock is a weapon, you know. And this individual was finding these rocks, probably kicking them up in the
Mm-hmm.
wreck yard, sticking 1 or 2 in his sock at a time or in his shoe,
Mm-hmm.
bringing them back to the dorm, meticulously gluing them together to.
Do you know what he glued them together
I'm
with?
gonna guess. Can I guess?
Yes, yes.
I'm gonna guess that he used creamer.
Yes, non-dairy creamer.
And I took a risk, of getting in trouble with these watercolors to make this picture, right?
Wow.
And that says something in itself too, that a person taking a risk to do something that's this beautiful because I knew that I needed to do this. My grandmother had passed away, and I just needed a way to kind of deal, right? But there's a
Had,
lot of symbolism in here too.
had you ever done artwork before
N-
going inside?
No, not until I got incarcerated.
How did you? I mean, this is an amazing composition, some
Mm,
beautiful imagery and symbolism here.
mm,
For those of you who are listening, driving on I-95 up towards Jacksonville, this is a piece where we see two people standing to the left. One is in a sailor's outfit. One is sitting on a motorcycle. There's a green, white, and red flag banner,
Italian.
Italian flag behind them. It says John Cotita on
John
it.
Catita, my granddaddy.
Wonderful. And on the far right is this uh, beautiful rendition of a little yellow house with the three steps, the requisite steps going up to the front porch with a little brick, um, little wall there in front. There's a butterfly sitting on a rose in
The
the front right.
butterfly represents my grandmother. We always called her the butterfly.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And there's this little treasure chest on the bottom.
Stories that I was told about the family. There was a family treasure
Ooh.
buried under a tree in
Is
Pensacola.
this the tree?
And
that
anyone
was-
who ever tried to dig up the treasure, the lightning would strike them or something.
Is that
would
why
catch
the
them fire.
flames are coming up?
That's the story that was always passed down. The butterfly on the 4 roses, the roses representing my mom and her 3 sisters, the leaves representing the number of children that each of my aunts had, and the one leaf falling off, that's me because of my incarceration.
And and so you were painting this knowing that at any time, if they flipped your cell,
Hmm.
that the officers could confiscate this and
Yeah,
ultimately destroy it.
yeah,
And you knew that,
I
and you
knew
went
it.
through all of this and painted this image.
Still did it.
My goodness, how long did it take for you to do this?
Oh my gosh. Well, because I could only work in short spurts of 20 or 30 minutes or something like that, it probably took me probably about 6 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. And so what was the impetus? What told you, hey, I can do this. I can take this time. I'm willing to take that risk
Yeah.
and get in trouble and create this piece with materials that are essentially contraband.
Yeah, so it was just healing art for me. It's just something that I needed. It was like I didn't have anyone that I could sit down and talk to about having, lost a loved one or whatever. So
Hmm.
I just talked to the art.
Talk to the art. Oh, I love that. And you have here two books
Hmm.
that seem to capture your experience while you were inside. Are there other art pieces in here?
Yeah, so I've had some friends over the years. This is a friend of mine, Brandy Bartall. She was a girlfriend of mine when I was in 10th grade, and
Hmm.
we're still very good friends
Can I
to
hold it
this
up?
day. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm kind of considered an uncle to her children.
Oh my goodness. And so this is I'm assuming a number two pencil.
Hmm.
Was it a golf size pencil? A little golf pencil?
Actually, they were probably just pencils that were snapped in half,
Okay.
because if you could get one pencil, you snap it in half and have two. But
Okay.
one of the things that we would do is we would take toilet paper and just like try to get a real fine point on the toilet
So
paper.
you can blend?
Right, and then I would just take the pencil and put it on concrete, and then take
Oh,
the tip of the toilet paper, get it into the lead there, and then use that to do the shading and stuff.
is that common inside?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. We see a lot of drawings like this of portraits inside.
yeah.
How did you, and you, again, you never drew before this, you never did art before you were inside.
Mm-mm.
This is a wonderful rendition. How did you teach yourself, or who taught you
Yeah.
how to do these types of drawings?
So this one was actually kind of a collaboration with me and an actual artist who did these portraits on a
Okay.
regular basis, and he was actually teaching me how to do it at that time.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't have technical names like, like that book, was it Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain?
By
Or,
Betty Edwards?
yeah,
I'm saying that out loud because I'm hoping Betty hears this and gives us some honorarium for mentioning it. Some sponsorship for her book.
right. They were just things that, so the guy that was teaching me was actually locked up in confinement, closed management
Mm-hmm.
for several years. And he taught himself by the old black and white pictures of models, like the old Sears or
Yeah.
Belt models or whatever. And he learned how to, because newspapers were black and white, so he learned how to do his shadows off of those old black and white
Wow.
pictures. And so that's how he did his portraiture. And so he was actually teaching me how to do this at the same time.
That's remarkable.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
is just remarkable.
Yeah.
And so, as you were doing your 31 years, you're doing more and more art. You're also finding new ways to not only reflect yourself and to get through this, you're also doing things to help underserved populations, including those inside. You're creating new changes, you're creating new policy, you're making
Yeah.
shifts.
Yeah, so loop back around a little bit. So when they let me into the welding class, obviously other lifers out on the compound saw that I was going into the welding class, and they're
Yeah.
like,
How'd you do that?"
How'd you do that?" And I'm like, dude, they have totally been misinterpreting that whole law forever. You can go to the welding class. You can go to the cabinet making class. You can go to any of
So you're
those
becoming
classes.
a spokesperson and advocate for them.
I just told them, fill out your request, because now they know they've cleared it up. And I got to give flowers to Dr. Ramos, Dr. Merrill Jones, Mr. May Barty, because as administrators, they're the gatekeepers.
Right.
And they could have shut all that down and said, no, we're just going to maintain the status quo here. But they were actually open-minded to the whole thing. And because of them and their willingness to allow one in, we were able to open the gate wider and allow others. After I left the welding class, I became a tutor in education.
Okay.
And you know how those guys were telling me, in order to get respect in prison, you got to go hit somebody over the head?
Right, which is a common refrain. I know a lot of people who are told that before
Yeah.
going inside.
Well, I found another way to survive.
Yeah.
And so I was teaching in class one day, and one of the gang leaders from the Black Gangster Disciples of BGD came up to me, and he's like, "Hey man, you think you can teach me some fractions?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sign up for class. Come on down." He's like, "Oh, no, white boy, it ain't going down like that." He says, "I need you to come out on the rec yard and teach me out there," because he didn't want to be seen
Oh.
as the leader of the gang. He didn't want to be seen up in the education building, right? And so when the leader of the Black Gangster Disciples tells you to meet him on the rec yard, you don't
You meet him on the rec
you
yard.
meet him on the rec yard.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went out there with my little number power books, right?
Mhm.
And so we sat down and on the bleachers, and we started working on fractions. And first day was okay. Second day, third day he was really getting frustrated, and so he balls up the paper and he throws it down at the ground and everything. And he starts to storm off the bleachers, and I said, hey, hold on. And I said, give me another chance. Right. So I put it on me. I put the onus on me. Like, maybe I'm not teaching it right. Like,
Right.
so he's like, he turns around, he looks at me, he goes, "Oh, you think you're slick, don't you?" I said, "Man, give me another chance." So he sits down, and I looked at him, and I said, "Don't you sell dope?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I sell dope. I swing it over here. I make 8 balls. I do that." I said, "When you're making 8 balls and stuff, you're slicing it and dicing it and all this kind of stuff." And he's like, oh yeah, I do this. And he told me his whole formula. I said, dude, you're doing fractions. And it was like the light came on, right?
Well,
And
you met him where he was.
I met him where he was. I was able to frame it with something that he could understand and comprehend. And man, next thing I know, man, he's like, he grasped it. It was just that switch came on. Well, there was this one jitterbug, right? One of his gang members that had been walking around the yard, right, with his little headphones on, and you could hear the music. But every time he got over there to the bleachers, you could tell he'd turn the music down because he was trying to ear hustle and see what was going on,
Sure.
right, with us. And so finally, he just stopped, and he was like, he looked at his leader, and he's like, man, what's going on with you and that white boy right there? And he said, man, I'm learning fractions. Just as proud as he could be when he said that, right? And so I looked at the young guy and I said, "You want to learn fractions with us?" And he looked at his leader,
Mm-hmm.
and his leader's like, "Yeah, come on." And he like jumped up there on the bleachers and everything. And I went to grab the book to turn it around to him, and the leader pushed my hand out the way and said, "I got this." And now he's teaching this other
Another
kid,
guy.
reach one, teach one, right? And so about another week or so went by, and we had about four guys up there, maybe three or four guys. And I told them, I said, listen, y'all, they got a rule in prison that where four or more are gathered is a gang. I
Right.
said, I'm not trying to join y'all's gang. And they were like, oh, no one will ever believe that as white as you are, that you're in the Black Gangster Disciples, right?
Okay.
And I said, yeah, but this is the Department of Corrections. I'm not willing to take that risk. They're going to define it however they want, right? So let's take this up to the education department.
Mm-hmm.
And so they all did. They all came and they joined my class. And within 3 months, probably half my class was gang members. And I'm not talking just one gang.
You're talking different gangs
Man,
on the
listen,
same space.
I had Vice Lords, I had Folk Nation, I had Latin Kings, I had BGDs, I had all of them in my classroom, and all the colors were left at the door.
You know, what I really appreciate is I tell those stories about what it's like when we run art sessions, and we have that in our groups, and we have them working on murals together and whatnot. This is the first time, really, that we've examined it from the inside, for what it was like for somebody on the inside to help create this space where everyone, basically, you found a neutral space for everyone to come together and realize what they could all learn from each other.
Yeah, and I let them know off the rip. I said, the rules are, when you come in this classroom, prison no longer exists. This is a place of education, a place of self-betterment and helping one another. And these students were coming in there, and I noticed they started bringing in other things like, hey, man, they were showing us to each other. It's like, this is my plan for a food truck when I get out. This is my plan for landscaping business.
So they had realistic expectations and goals
Their
and
whole
dreams.
mindset was
just
leaving
changed.
the streets.
It's like it's no longer about what's going to happen next week while I'm in here. It's what's going to happen after.
Right.
Realistic ideas.
Right.
And you had those too. And
Right.
I say that because that's my transition to say, let's move ourselves now out of prison. You spend 30 years in there. You're making a lot of changes, doing a lot of things. You now get out. So in our last 10 minutes, let's talk about 10 minutes doesn't warrant all the things that you've done since you came out. You realize what you can change on the inside. Now you become a spokesperson and you make a lot of changes outside. You hit a lot of obstacles and you overcome those obstacles as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so transitioning to the outside really started from the inside when they brought back the Second Chance Pell Grant.
In 2018.
Right. Congress finally figured out that anyone that receives an education in prison is 43% less likely to recidivate. Right. So they bring it back in, and I'm able to get into the program that's brought to us by Miami-Dade College.
Okay.
The first public college in Florida that just this year actually got its prison education program credential from the Southern Associations of Crediting School Authority,
My
whatever
goodness.
the SACCOS or whatever it's called. But anyway, they got it. So that is testament of how awesome this program is. When I left with one class that I needed to get my college associate's degree. So I went into prison needing one class for my high school diploma. I leave prison
Needing one class
with
for your
needing one
for
class to get my
college.
associates.
Yeah.
But I was able to return to college after my release and was able to graduate with 4.0 GPA.
My goodness.
made the dean's list, and I'm the first formerly incarcerated college graduate from Florida to receive an academic achievement award.
Do we have sound effects for applause? Are we allowed to have that on the podcast? That's amazing. That's incredible. And it doesn't rest there.
No,
So now you say, but despite that, yes, Miami, but now you want to be a Knoll. Because
yeah,
you're smarter. You're smarter than most people. You say, I want to be a Knoll.
I want to be a Knoll, right? I want to be a Seminole. The path had a few more curves and
Sure.
barriers to get here, though, and of course we'd have to have probably another episode
I'm
to
good
talk
with
about
that.
all that. But I will skip forward. I get accepted to Florida State University, and in the interim, I receive a scholarship
Mhm.
from the Jack Kent Cook Foundation. And I have to say Kent because when I talk to the kids in high schools and I tell them about the Jack Kent Cook Foundation, I see the index cards and they write Jack Kent Cook, right? And I'm like, no, I said Kent.
We really don't know.
K-E-N-T. So anyway, got the Jack Kent Cook Scholarship. Over 1,700 transfer students across the nation from 330 community colleges applied for this.
Mhm.
And four from Florida. They select 70, four from Florida. I was one of the four. And that gave me $55,000 a year for 2 to 3 years to get my bachelor's degree and
Mhm.
another $150,000 for graduate school.
My
And
goodness.
because Florida State University opened up its doors and just wrapped arms of love around me since I've been here, every one of those dollars, nearly $250,000, is coming to Florida State University through a justice impacted student.
But and anyone else would take that and so to speak run,
I
right?
could have gone to any 4-year university in the nation
But
that would accept me.
and you could have just used it for yourself, if I may.
Yeah.
You could have just used it to better yourself and move on. But you're continuing to give back. You're
Mhm.
giving back to Tallahassee, to the state of Florida, to justice impacted individuals. Tell me about that drive.
Yeah, so my first day here on campus, it was tabling day. I think it was Wednesdays, right? And
Yeah,
I looked
right.
around and I saw the different registered student organizations. I saw the Muslim organization, the women's organization, the Catholic organization, the LGBTQ organization, and I walked up to the SGA table, and I met one of their representatives, and Carson Mann. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
asked him, I
Okay.
said, do you guys have a justice impacted student organization here? I mean, like from day one, I wanted to connect with my people, right?
Right.
And he's like looking around, he's kind of this tall guy, so he's looking
Did
over
he
my
even know
head.
what you meant? Because
Yeah, I think he
it's-
did.
The concept of calling somebody justice impact is a wonderful term.
Yeah,
And I have to confess, I don't think I've heard it used that way until I met you.
yeah. No, it's well used. It's simple, And he's like, no, I don't think we have one. And I said, well, we're about to.
Okay.
And so at that point, I joined UROP, which is the University Research Opportunity Program.
Mm-hmm.
And I met Logan Rubenstein and I met Bella Rios and a few
Mhm.
others who were also coming in as transfer students. So I'm also a transfer student, right? They
Yeah.
were coming in as transfer students. They got to know me in the context of UROP. And I'm very open with my story. I shared it with them.
Mm-hmm.
Bella goes on to become a senator.
Mm-hmm.
Logan goes on to become legislative affairs director in SGA, right?
Mhm.
A year goes by, and I had wanted to serve in student government, but I couldn't because they had a rule that said if you have a felony conviction,
Right.
you can't serve in student government. You could go to school here if you got approved by the Judicial Review Committee and you're in good standing. But they came back to me and they said, listen, we want to change that rule. We want to allow justice impacted students to be able to have a voice in student government. You come here, you pay the tuition, you pay the fees, you should be able to have a voice in things that go on campus. So they passed a rule a bill that removed the felony conviction barrier.
And that rule is called what?
I'm still trying to get used to it, but yes, it is called the Eddie Fordham Act.
It's remarkable. And that's just a small sliver. I mean, so far you and I have found ourselves doing work with the Florida Coalition for Higher Education in Prison.
Mhm.
You're involved with the National Coalition for
Mhm.
Higher Education in Prison. You're involved with all of these different organizations that's really trying to make change inside and out.
Mm.
I mean, in 2 minutes or less, just run through the litany of things that you're involved with.
Well, it starts with mentors. So I have a mentor. His name is Angel Sanchez.
Mhm.
And Angel did 12 years in prison, and now he's studying law at Yale. right?
Yeah.
He was also a fellow with the Department of Justice. He was very instrumental in helping to get that second chance Pell Grant thing approved and everything. And so when I have had others mentor me, it's important that I'm involved in things where I can be a mentor to others. I just want to continue to pave the way and to give back the same way that others poured into me. I'm here at Florida State to pour into our justice impacted students, but not just our justice impacted students, but the campus as a whole. So I've gotten involved in UROP. I am a Purpose Fellow with FAMU and FSU, where I study social justice and education.
Mhm.
I've been given a research grant, an IDEA grant. It was called Degrees
IDEA grant.
IDEA
Okay,
grant, where I studied the degree completion rates and the retention of justice impacted students. I've been able to interview our provost, our chair of the Judicial Review Committee,
Mhm.
head of admissions, yourself, others, because I wanted to know, what did our administrators, our gatekeepers, if you will, what do they think are the barriers that justice
Mhm.
impacted students face coming to a major university, right? And so we were able to take the things that you were telling us, right, and begin working on policy. So removing the felony conviction barrier through the Eddie Fordham Act, that's one. The
Mhm.
other one is, how do we prepare justice impacted students while they're incarcerated,
Yep.
right, to make the transition to university? So one of the things that I heard from many of you in the administration is that we need better preparation on the inside,
Yeah.
right? So we're thinking now about sending students from FSU into the prisons
Yep.
as tutors and mentors in service learning projects. So I've got some conversations going. It's a little premature and a little early, to say who or where or what.
I can tell you right now, I know that the School of Theater, we're sending students who are taking class in School of Theater to go into Madison
Yep.
to do to teach performance and improv
Yep.
over a semester-long period.
Absolutely. And there are many programs that are doing this work. And I've met some of our professors that do newsletters that go inside the prison, right? There's the MAPS or the Model Arts program that you have, right? And there are
Is
and
Carrier Pigeon? That's that what
that's what I was talking about.
Sonia
Yeah.
Cronin's
I didn't know if I
program?
was supposed to say it or not.
Oh,
but
I
you
will
said
say it.
so it's okay.
Carrier Pigeon,
Right?
Sonia Cronin's program is amazing.
It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
great.
We'll have her on the show as well.
Right. And so over in our Panama City campus, we have programs that are going inside too, but they're like these little silos, right?
Yeah.
How do we tie
Right.
all of these people, all of these institutes, all these certificate programs together, convert that to actual credit-bearing coursework to make education truly transformative for those on the inside? And instead of having the school to prison pipelines, we have the prison to university pipeline. We reverse engineer it, and the children of those men and women will be inspired by their parents to go to college themselves. And that's how we reduce mass incarceration. And that's how we reverse the school to prison pipeline.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
why I'm a policy student, y'all.
That's amazing. You heard it here first. We're going to make those changes. I'm sorry. Eddie's going to make those changes.
FSU's going to
And
make
the
those
rest of us
changes.
are going to follow in his wake to make sure those things happen. That's amazing. Before we end this, I want you to read the quote that's on your shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that underscores everything we're talking
Yeah,
about
so
here.
each of us is more than the worst thing, that we've ever done. That's a Brian Stevenson quote from EJI, Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery. And I went there, and that place is, I want to say it's amazing, it's magnificent, but
There's not enough
it's
words.
painful
Yeah.
because you see the history of what blacks in this country have gone through, right? And from slavery to mass incarceration
Right.
across the bridge of Jim Crow. How in the world do we dismantle the things, those systems, right, that are still in effect today, still on the books, right? How do we adjust and learn from our history so that we don't repeat it?
Yeah.
And when I walked through that museum and I saw
Yeah.
it,
Systemic oppression.
you know what? My incarceration of 31 years, 2 months, and 8 days cannot compare.
Okay. Well, I have to say, I'm honored and privileged to have a front seat to watching all of the changes and transformations you are making, Eddie. I am just honored to help out in any way that I can, and of course to call you my friend. It is
Not just for today.
Not just for today. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and make that long term. I'm committing to that now. Eddie, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you
on the
for
show
having
today.
me.
It was wonderful. Thank you all very much, and I
Thank you to
look
your
forward
great team here.
Oh,
you
the
know.
producers, Malaya and Sydney, are
Yep.
incredible. And you will please spread the word, all of the things that Eddie's doing, and please share this as far as you can.
And can I shamefully put a plug in for the Justice Impacted Student Organization?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so Florida State University students and staff, please look up on Knoll Central or our headquarters here at SGA for the Justice Impact Student Organization. We need you to be members. We need allies.
You heard it here. Thank you all very much.
Creativity Unconfined has been brought to you by Florida State University's Institute for Arts and Art Therapy with the Imprisoned. Special thanks to our producers Sydney Nichols and Malia Burrows, as well as Florida State University's College of Fine Arts. If you like what you heard, and even if you didn't, please support us by liking and subscribing.